How is the Philippine government preparing for China's threat to arrest foreign trespassers, possibly including some Filipino fishermen in its waters? We're joined now by the Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore J. Tariela. Commodore Tariela, welcome to Dateline Philippines.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon, and also a pleasant day to your viewers.
A pleasant day to you too. Now, have you monitored any increased presence so far? Because we know China is imposing the arrest, at least the threat to arrest trespassers in its waters beginning tomorrow. That's Saturday. So, based on the reports that you're getting from the field, in anticipation of this new rule, are you seeing more, Chinese military or militia ships in the area right now?
Well, it's a bit ironic, no? The implementation of their new regulation is said to be implemented tomorrow. But based on our monitoring and the number of the Chinese Coast Guard and Chinese Maritime deployed, for example, deployed in Bajo de Masinloc, right now we can only see 2 China Coast Guard vessels and 6 Chinese Maritime militia roaming around Bajo de Masinloc. So it's a bit departure to the usual number of Coast Guard vessels that were deployed in Bajo de Masinloc in ordinary days. I've been mentioning this before. Originally, there are always 4 China Coast Guard vessels that are at any one time deployed in Bajo de Masinloc. 2 China Coast Guard vessels inside the lagoon and 2 sweeper vessels from the Coast Guard on the outside of Lagoon of Bajo de Masinloc. But right now, what we are only monitoring is that there's only 2 China Coast Guard vessels and 6 Chinese Maritime militia. So if China is really serious in implementing their new regulations, I could anticipate that there is a surge of the number of China Coast Guard. But right now, as I said, there is a significant decrease of number of assets that they have.
And that's not even the actual number when you talk about normal operations in the area, don't you think?
Yes.
Okay. You've seen...
But then again...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Continue, please.
But then again, the Commandant of the Philippine Coast Guard, Admiral Ronnie Gavan, is not taking this as a...
Ito kasing China, mukhang patibong lang kasi ito eh. Kung iisipin po natin mga padli, sa diskarte ng China, mukhang talagang gustong-gusto nilang girahin ng Pilipinas eh. Itong mga pinaggagawa nila ng mga ito, mukhang kung talagang iisipin mong maputi, ako po, paano talaga nilang girahin ng Pilipinas? Nihintay lang nilang gumawa ng karahasan ng Pilipinas. Parang naman iwas pusoy sila eh. Kung magkaroon man ng gyera, iisipin ng mga nasa UN, Pilipinas ang nagumpisa, hindi sila. Kasi Pilipinas ang gumawa ng unang hakbang. Nako po, mahirap to. Pag nakaroon ng gyera, nako saan kaya tayo pupulutin? Buhay nga naman ako.
Something that we really need to take seriously, right? So for the Coast Guard, without disclosing operational details of the operation, Admiral Gavan has already alerted our Coast Guard assets in anticipation if ever China would be apprehending Filipino fishermen as they are engaged in fishing venture in different parts of the West Philippine Sea.
Okay, so that goes to say, I don't know if you've seen the report we aired before this interview. Willard Cheng was telling us about this protest by Filipino fishermen at the Chinese embassy against, of course, the supposed planned arrest of any trespassers in the area. And it also said, the report also said that the fishermen will continue to go fishing in Philippine fishing grounds despite those threats. Are you saying that the Coast Guard is ready to escort local fisher folk when they set sail?
Well, that's what I said, no? The Coast Guard Commandant has already alerted our Coast Guard vessels right now without disclosing the deployment of our Coast Guard assets. We are committed in safeguarding the interests of the Filipino people and ensuring that the Filipino fishermen will not be apprehended. That's the main objective of our deployment of Coast Guard vessels.
And from what you understand of the order from China about
Itong China, obvious na ginagamit lang ang West Philippine Sea para mag-umpisa ng ano eh. Ewan ko lang mga padli ah. Pero kung talagang iisipin natin, ginagamit lang na front ito ng mga Chino para girahin ng Pilipinas. Eh, hindi lang naman siguro yung West Philippine Sea ang balak ang kinin ng mga yan eh. Kumbaga yan lang siguro ang gusto nilang gawing ano. Wala sa ayos.
post arrest of trespassers. The term trespassers, does that just is it
Paano
just
magiging
limited to
trespasser,
fishermen,
eh?
or does it include other parties as well? And what are your plans? I mean, are there research missions perhaps that will be happening tomorrow, at least, when the supposed arrests will begin?
Well, we have to go back on the day that this was first announced by the Chinese embassy. This was actually the day that Atinito, Mr. Rafaela David, declared a successful mission in Bajo de Masinloc last month, right? Mm-hmm. So this was also the same day that China's embassy mentioned about this new regulation of the Chinese Coast Guard. So what I'm saying is that they don't really care whether you're fishermen or civil society or ordinary tourists who would roam around the maritime, their legitimate claim and that they have maritime jurisdiction over the bodies of this water. So for us, the intent of the Chinese government is not only to apprehend or discourage the Filipino fishermen, but we think that this is actually targeting civil society movement for them to be discouraged in doing the same action that Rafaela David did in Bajo de Masinloc. You can just imagine how difficult it was for the Chinese government to counter the civil society movement of Atinito to the point of deploying 11 China Coast Guard vessels, more than 30 Chinese maritime militia, and even 2 PLA Navy vessels. So if you can think of other civil society from other countries, whether in Vietnam or Malaysia, in Luconia Shoal, or Indonesia in Natuna, it would really be very problematic for the Chinese government. So we think that this regulation that they have released on the day that Atinito declared success of their mission is actually to discourage civil society and not just targeting the Filipino fishermen.
Okay, Commodore Tariela, although you're saying there seems to be no indication that there is an increase in Chinese security or militia vessels in the area, but again, we cannot take chances. I'm sure you've drawn out scenarios from ordinary to worst case scenarios that could happen once, in fact, China implements or imposes these apprehensions. Now, what will the Philippine government do once Filipino fishermen are arrested in the area?
Well, Sir Stanley, I cannot disclose to you the operational details on the part of the Philippine Coast Guard, but with regard to the National Task Force Swept Philippine Sea, the NTFWCS is composed of different agencies, from the Department of Justice to the Department of National Defense and the Department of Foreign Affairs. I know for a fact that all of these government agencies have already created their own contingencies to respond to this kind of possibility.
And which particular areas, if you could share with us, would you consider critical when it comes to the supposed threat to arrest trespassers without, again, disclosing operational details of Coast Guard?
Well, for the Philippine Coast Guard, we can categorically say that a particular maritime area in the West Philippine Sea is highly critical in two ways. One, if that's really the place where our Filipino fishermen really visit as a traditional fishing ground, because it's it's very there is a possibility of more Filipino fishermen going there. And second, the other critical area is those areas where we can say that there is an enough or significant increase of Chinese Coast Guard or Chinese Maritime Militia. It just goes to show that perhaps that is
Wala na, Gyera na to.
where they consider as serious in implementing that.
Wala tayong magagawa. Kahit anong pag-ano ang gawin ng gobyerno ng Pilipinas, wala tayong magagawa. Itong mga Chino masyadong agresibo eh. Gyera na ang pupuntahan nito. Ang tanong, saan kaya tayo pupulutin kapag nagkagera dito sa Pilipinas? Panoorin po, basahin nyo tong opinyon ni mga Padli, Commodore Roy Vincent Trinidad ng Philippine Coast Guard. Hindi pala Philippine Navy pala si Sir Roy. Philippine Navy spokesperson sa West Philippine Sea. Pabasahin niyo mga Padli. We have increased our patrols. Yan, nag-increase na. Nagdagdag na ng mga tao. We are involving our partners and allies, nasa mga kaalyado ng Pilipinas. Yan, mga kaalyado ng Pilipinas sa UN. Yan, lalong-lalo na yung Amerika. We are not the only one concerned. Even other countries are concerned about that. Yan, ano pang mangyayari dyan? Sigurado yan. Naku po, China ka talaga.